this one was definitely for the Davis family, but I think some of the other neighbors that lived around, I think the Davises would let them be buried there too, because there wasn't anything, there weren't too many graveyards in that area. Okay, the next one, Epps Cemetery, is there's of course more graves there. Mentioned about 280. It's again, this is a family. It started off as a family cemetery, and then it ended up becoming some of the other families that were, besides the Epps family, some others were buried there too. They also have in the front part of the cemetery is the white section, and then in the back are the 91 black. Well, there's probably more than that too, but there's the black graves are in the back of the cemetery.
What's that location?
And that location, okay, let me show you first. There, and I'm going to get to the map and show you where it's located. There's one shot of the entrance. It has a nice fence and it says Historical Epps Cemetery 1836. The earliest marker I could find was 1837, but it probably was started around 1836. And it is considered a private cemetery, but a lot of times when I've been there, they don't keep the gate. The gates are open, and you can get in.
What does that say under the word cemetery?
Private. Yeah.
Private.
Yeah, it says private. And this one, that's another shot. That's my old car there. That's the white car. Now there's a historical marker for it. And I believe they're right as far as it being the oldest burial ground in the city. I would say perhaps the oldest one in the whole parish. It started at least by 1836. There's, besides the Epps family, there's a family that was called Cates that lived in that area. And here's the map of it. Okay, Greenwood. This is Pines Road. Pines Road. Here's I-20. Here is Greenwood Road. This is the Shreveport Fire Academy, Shreveport Fire and Police Academy. And so it's right. It doesn't show it on here, but it's right adjacent to.
Is that south of I-20?
No, north. Here's
I
I-20.
know where you are.
North, and so that's Pines Road down
Okay, I want to ask you a question. And I was brought up on a plantation, and all of my friends were black sharecropper kids. But I've had some people tell me, and swear it's true, in those cemeteries sometimes, not all the time, but they would bury a good mule out there. If a mule died, that was the tractor that made the whole thing. And they would drag them out there and bury them.
In the family cemetery.
Well, I'm sure not right there.
But I mean,
Yes, yes. The mules are very valuable.
Yeah.
About like your dog is now to you, I guess.
I haven't heard of mules. I've heard of sometimes maybe some horses, or at least nearby. And I know there's a cemetery, a family cemetery over in East Texas where there's a dog. The dog that was buried. In fact, the dog was buried.
Historical, you mean, or just?
Yeah, it's the bullock, but there's a dog buried in amongst the rest of them.
Good boy.
Okay, there's one of the old ones there, Ezra Cates. I mentioned the Cates family. There's several Cates in there. His son, he had a son named Ezra Cates, too, born 1817. And his son built that home, it was an antebellum home, 1849. That was called, I also do a lot of research on old homes, especially in Caddo. His son built one, it was called Glencoe, Glencoe, Glencoe. It was on Jefferson Page Road. And it's, in 1972, they were, Glencoe there, it was in the newspaper, they wanted to put a subdivision there, and they wanted to find some place to move the plantation home. And they were checking, it was still in fairly good shape at that time. Well, it looks like they never found anybody who was willing to do it, and they had to demolish it. There's a good shot of Epps. Flowers there. This is the oldest marker at Epps. It was a young girl, only 1 year old, Judith Elizabeth Epps.
Was there writing under there and it just washed out?
It just says born and died. It just has the born and.
It's a large space to just say that.
Yeah, there's quite a number of those tall, thin stones at Epps that look kind of like that. They're fairly tall but they're not real deep. Then after you go through the white section, you come to this fence here, and it says Epps Cemetery Private. On the other side of this, they don't keep this locked either usually. On the other side is the black section. And I'm sure some of those buried in there were slaves. Some of them could have been buried there during slavery. I didn't find any markers of any of the blacks who died during slavery, but there were quite a number of them who had been born during slavery, who were in the black section. Okay, here's one of them who died, Dan Taylor, who was he was 63 when he died, and it looks like. Yeah, it does look like cows, because usually you see a sheep. I don't know. I guess that looks like a lamb or something. And usually that's for a youngster. But his is the oldest of the black markers. Which is, if you see that 1898, well, it's just they didn't. Couldn't afford markers, and sometimes they just. In this cemetery, I've found some that are just like rocks, or just a slab of cement, and they just put the name and the dates. But in Epps I did find about at least 90 markers. Black section. This is one also there in that section. It's on the ground. It's an obelisk shape, but it's fallen on the ground. Ellen Neves. She was the wife of Anderson Neves, and she was born in Amite County, Mississippi. She died in 1912. The reason I have her in there, a few years ago, I had a patron who called from California, and I was helping her do genealogy over several months, and she mentioned she's related to Neves. I said, I've seen that name before. It turns out this is one of her ancestors. I knew her family had been in this area, but I said, I know exactly where your ancestors are there, the Neves. Okay, and this is interesting. This is the earliest Forest Park. It's was before. This was created. Well, the earliest burial was 1843. This one was called Forest Park before any of the ones on St. Vincent, but it has different names. You see, some people have called it the Whitworth Cemetery and some Walden Ferry Road Cemetery. It's on Walden Ferry
This
Road.
this is Forest Park out here where we know it now?
No, it's way over west of Greenwood.
Okay.
West of Greenwood. And it has about 46 graves.
Forest Park's a popular name for them.
Yeah. And here's where it's located. Let's start there. Okay, here's you're coming out of Greenwood. Here's Highway 80. You're coming out of Greenwood, and you have several branches here, forks. This is Elysian Fields Road here, and this is at Walden Ferry. So you really first have to turn off Elysian Fields and then real quick on Walden Ferry. And then you go down here and cross a little creek, and there it is right there. You have to go kind of slow, and you can see some of the markers through the trees. It's not too far from the road. So it has, it's called.
Is this considered private property? I mean, if we went on this, what are we gonna do?
Well, I
Shoot
didn't.
it out?
This one I didn't have any trouble. There is a house maybe over here, but I think they're used to people coming. And nobody, gave me any trouble going there. And it's also a cemetery that several years ago, Gary Joyner, the historian and professor at LSUS, he had some of his students go to that cemetery and work on it, clean it up, and transcribe everything. So it's a pretty historic cemetery. There's not a historical marker out on the road.
Is it in black and white?
No, it's just, as far as I can tell, and it has a little fence around it that I think it's all white. There probably are some blacks buried somewhere in that area.
Down here on Jordan Street or Jordan, that cemetery, are you familiar? I may be calling it by the wrong name. It's off of the extension coming into town. on Gary
Greenwood
Drive.
Cemetery, I think, isn't
Is that Jordan, did you say?
it? Yeah, is it called Greenwood Cemetery?
Or
I
Stone.
think it is. I think I've heard that.
Yes,
Yeah, Stoner. Yeah, Stoner and that's Greenwood.
Okay, well, what I was interested in, and if you know why, if you get on the east side, pretty close to the end of it, and you pass by, you'll see tombstones with different labor union names on them.
Yeah.
What would that be for?
Well, what they did is different groups would buy. They would collect money from the member, and they would buy a certain area of the cemetery, so their members could be buried together.
I didn't see anybody buried there. I didn't see any graves in any of those. But they bought them, I guess.
Yeah, Now, yeah, I've seen several of those, carpenters.
Yes, that's it.
And they, but there are, usually they're probably the, you might not see them because they might be the flat markers. Flat markers that you have to see.
And what cemetery was it?
Greenwood.
Right here off of Erie Drive. Yeah,
Here's a shot of Forest Park. It's not from the road, but you're getting close to it, and you can see it does have a fence. It has a few vaults, and so you can see, especially during the fall and winter, when there's not a lot of foliage, you can see some of the markers there.
So you didn't go into that one?
Yeah, I did go into that one, and I took. I didn't take photos of every marker, but most of these are on fine grade. And Whitworth was one of the main families that are buried in there. In fact, I just found out, I don't know if it's just coincidence, but I found that this, I think it's going to be on the next sheet. Yeah, the Samuel Whitworth, in 1830, he was living in Greene County, Alabama. William Davis, who was that Revolutionary War veteran, he was in Greene County, Alabama. They were just one page apart on the census. I'd be surprised if they didn't know each other back in Greene County, and then they lived fairly close to each other in Caddo Parish.
Well, then we might have gotten there first and said, you know, they're giving these people grants.
So Samuel Whitworth, see, he was born in Rockingham County, North Carolina. His wife was named Margaret Dixon. And I think that's what it says on here, that mentions where he was born. Yeah, he has one of the slab.
Yeah.
One of the slab markers.
I know there's a cemetery down on, David Myatt's farm on Fox Road going down. You just kept going down Elby Road, on down. Right across the street from, Robson, not Robertson, but Robson Road. Back in those woods, we were back in there one time, running across the little fenced-in area with tombstones in it.
And we be together again.
This is, Isabella was a daughter of Samuel Whitworth. And
We're still in Forest Park.
yeah, this is still Forest Park. She was born in Greene County, Alabama, 1832. It's also interesting, she was born that year, that was the year that William Davis started receiving his pension. And what they did at first for Revolutionary War veterans, they didn't have money for a pension, so they gave them land, especially in Ohio. But later on, when they did have money, they could start drawing a pension.
Well, how much were their pensions in comparison to just managing to get by? Were they, could you live off of the pension or what?
I'm not sure. All those pensions, of course, they mention the amount, monthly amount.
Yeah.
Although on William Davis, it looked like he last was paid in 1841, the same year he died. And that payment was for a number of months, not every month. I think they might be maybe 6 months or something. But I don't know how well that sufficed for.
How much was it?
remember now, but it's on, in his pension record, it would show that. But the Revolutionary War veteran in Bossier, John Abney, he never had a pension. So some of them, they would get, even though John Abney lived longer than William Davis, about 6 years longer. And Isabella, her husband was named Zach Howe.